So this is something I've talked about on my videos before, about how people just don't understand how the human body works, but specifically how our reproductive organs, how our reproductive health works. So again, I have to explain these super basic concepts that we learned in health class, like back in like 8th and 9th grade. So, okay, so I saw this picture, and I'll also put it, I can kind of see it better when I have my phone not like directly on the thing, but you might have seen it. It's, I'm also going to post it in the description, but it's basically these two clay pear-shaped items, and one of them's white and small, and the other one is like twice the size and red, and they're in a person's hand. So, and the caption for it is saying that the little white one is what the uterus looks like when you're not menstruating, and the big red one is what the uterus looks like when you are menstruating, and that's why it is so painful, and it feels like your freaking uterus is gonna drop out on the freaking floor. Anyways, yeah, so, what? Where the fuck do you get that shit? I had first seen that picture in a Tumblr post claiming the same shit, but luckily by the time and this was months and months ago, but luckily by the time I'd seen this Tumblr post, someone else had already stepped in and corrected it, so I didn't have to go in there and be like, excuse you? So I already commented this both on my friend's thing and also on the original posters thing, their comment stream. But here's the thing, that's complete bullshit. Because do you not remember how the whole menstrual cycle works? Let's go back and teach you these things. So usually they have it as week 1 being when you menstruate. That's when things start anew. You're getting rid of the old one to start a new one. So week 1, you are shedding the previous month's lining that would have been the placenta, the embryonic fluid, which is kind of like blood, and all that other crap, and the mucus, all that stuff. It's getting rid of it. The pain you're feeling, and the feeling like it's gonna fall out, it's actually because your uterus is contracting to push all that crap out. You are actually experiencing contractions, as in the thing that pregnant women who are giving birth experience, however on a more minor scale. However, some people's period contractions are so bad that they're comparable to birth contractions, which is why you end up with women or people with uteruses who need to go on birth control because of their periods, because sometimes like my sister, she was one of these cases where it was so painful. She was a rugby player, and yet like she would get like trampled on with cleats and she wouldn't care, but her periods would be so bad that she'd be doubled over in pain and she couldn't move, and she would be stuck there for hours because of how, or maybe not hours, I don't know, anyways, like extended periods of time. I don't know how long they lasted, but very long time, and it'd be very painful, very terrible, because they're actually contractions. That's why it hurts. That's why it feels like that. And while it can happen sometimes where the vagina or cervix will become slightly swollen, it's very minor, and it's actually kind of rare, or not rare, but it's not that common, and even people who experience it, they don't experience it every month all the time. Some do, but plenty of people don't. But then, okay, so you've shed all the previous month's failed pregnancy, basically. And so we're starting anew, because here's the thing, because the whole month after that, the remaining 3 weeks of your cycle is gaining stuff. You're creating lining. I remember seeing this diagram in my book of like the whole month charted out. So like starting from week 2, or they were having week 1 being like once you're done menstruating. So, and it was just basically this sort of thing going up. The amount of stuff in your whatever is kind of doing this. So if this was like your thing, it was doing this, like from nothing to until it was completely okay, we're really sure we're not getting anything, all right, flush it down the toilet type thing. And week 2 on my scale, on my thing, is when you ovulate, which means the egg gets released from your ovary. I was gonna say ovum, but that was wrong, and I was trying to figure out why, and my brain was not working. I have not gotten a lot of sleep. Anyways, so from your ovary, because usually only one ovary releases an egg, and usually they take turns and whatever. Sometimes it's like 2 from one, sometimes they both accidentally release, and you end up with fraternal twins. But anyway, so yeah, so you end up, it releases the egg, and it goes through the fallopian tube, and usually, actually, the sperm meets the egg in the fallopian tube, and then the zygote is already starting cell division before it even attaches to the cell, to the uterus wall, the lining that's being created. So anyways, it's building that the whole fucking month. So if that model were true, your uterus would be getting bigger and bigger for like 3 weeks, and it would be getting more and more painful and more uncomfortable, and it wouldn't be sort of like off and on the way cramps are, because again, they're contractions. It would just be constant. Kind of like when you gotta pee really bad, because that's the best comparison if we're gonna use that fucking idea. So basically, like 3 weeks, it's like your pee is building. Why did I say it like that? Anyways, like your bladder is getting really full, and then, because if you really need to pee, it's really uncomfortable. It even gets like painful almost, not quite like super painful, but it can get really uncomfortable. And then when you finally go pee, it feels so much better because you're finally relieving that pressure. So if that model were true, then your period, when you're actually shedding the stuff, would feel great, because you're like, oh my god, this has been so terrible for 3 weeks, and that feels so much better. I'm getting all this shit out of me. So like, no. What the fuck? Why would you even think that? That doesn't make any sense. Are you thinking that the actual, like, skin of the uterus is actually, like, swollen? And that's what's happening? Like, if that's happening and that's actually a medical condition in the Tumblr post or whatever, it's an actual medical, it's a serious medical condition. You need to get your ass to a hospital. So, if that's happening. But that's not happening. If you're just having period cramps, that's normal. Everybody gets period cramps, unless they're so bad that you're double over in pain, because that's an actual medical condition that they're only recently discovering, because everyone underestimates the amount of pain that women experience, and it's something I've talked about before, but anyways. So like, so your uterus does not change size, okay? Even when because the thing is that your uterus is designed for a baby. It's not like full, like it's not like this or something, like, really, I don't know, I'm trying to make the shape of my 2 hands. Here we go. It's not like this or some shit, like where there's no room for anything, and then it like swells up and it fills up with blood or something. It is already like this with room in there, and then the lining gets more and more until like there's barely any room in there, and then it's like pushing to get it. I'm probably fucking up the demonstration with my hands now. It's like not what it looks like. But anyways, and then it sheds it through contractions, and it is your ab muscles too, I think. I'm not a doctor, so, but I do understand the basics of reproductive health. Jesus Christ. So, yeah, fuck. People don't get that the fucking sperm are like, the size of an ant compared to a peach, and that it's half of the genetic information, and that's it. And I've had to talk about that in a previous video, and now people are thinking that your fucking uterus is twice its size during your period, which is not what happens. Jesus fucking Christ, go back to fucking 9th grade biology or health class or what. Oh yeah, that's why I know this. I learned this shit in biology class because I had a really good science teacher in grade 9. Health class, they didn't teach me squat. So this is also why I'm like one of the few people, when all this stuff recently is talking about how the urethra is in a different place than the vagina hole. The vagina is the name of the hole, by the way. So the urethra has a different hole. That's like, so if we're looking at it from the side, by the way, that's what I'm doing, is like separate. And everyone's like, what? Where's the urethra? What's going on? Where do you pee out of? And I was like, I know this shit because my biology teacher, instead of using the same front-on diagram that they always use, he gave us all side diagrams of the male and female anatomy, and it was so fucking obvious how everything worked. It showed where the bladder was, it showed where the uterus was, it showed where even the anus to the freaking bowels, in the fucking colon, in the whatever the fuck, large intestine. There. Anyways, and it like showed how all the clitoris was, or the urethra was, where the vagina was, to the cervix, to the uterus, and the even like all that stuff, how that all worked, and how it's kind of like, if you're looking at it from the side, it's kind of like even shaped like this a little bit, and it's like, that's super clear. I totally see how that all works, instead of that stupid front model where you can't tell shit. So, yeah, I had a really good teacher, and like in our biology tech, in our like science textbooks, we had that information. But usually, most people learn it in health class, and they just basically learn how to deal with the period, not what actually happens during your period, which is really important. I think that people should understand their bodies, and also it was co-ed, so the boys learned about how the women's bodies worked, and this shit was on the test too. Like periods were on the test for everyone, boys and girls alike. So I thought that was actually really important. And also, like, we separate the health class between the boys and the girls, and like all the girls that didn't have that awesome science teacher, they don't understand how the fucking penis works, and I totally know how the penis works because I learned it in science class. And people are like, what the fuck, how does a boner work? Is there an actual bone in there? I'm like, the fuck no. and then people make jokes with the blood rushing theory. I'm like, yeah, because it's this like spongy tissue that gets all stiff, and I'm like totally knowing how this shit works, and like how like the urethra is the same hole and everything else, and it blocks off the passage when you get an erection. It blocks off the passage to the bladder, and I like know all this shit about how the penis works and everything else because of this class. And and then they all knew how all the shit worked down there for the vagina and the clitoris and the all that stuff down there. So like, it's important for co-ed, like, people to understand each other's bodies as well, because of the amount of fucking misconceptions that are out there about how all this shit works. And it's also important to just give the science behind this shit. It's basic. I mean, it didn't take us long to figure it all out. I mean, it was really easy to understand when they just demonstrated it this way. So like, yeah, like, the fuck, dude, Jesus Christ, there's an issue with the way health class is taught, man. And like, stop putting so much emphasis on the STDs. Yeah, we get it, they're dangerous, and yeah, you gotta be careful, wrap it up, we get it, but like, teach people how their bodies work too. That should be like in there too somewhere. It shouldn't be all like, don't have sex, you'll die. It should be a little bit more. I also went to a Catholic school, so that might be a part of that. So yeah, alright, thanks for watching.